A German court just ruled against Google over AI search. Two German publishers said that AI search made them look like they were connected to scams. But here's the part that creates the problem for Google. The court said that AI answers was Google's responsibility, and if this ideal spread, Google could end up in serious trouble every time AI search gives false information. Let's jump right into the basic facts of this story. What happened? So basically, Google lost a judgment in Germany and said that they're going to be responsible in Germany when they use their AI overview, which is basically a search engine, but using AI for Google, that any results that are returned, whether they're false or defamation or anything like that, the courts in Germany found that they're going to be liable. Now, this is a significant ruling for what's to come potentially in the future. So before we jump into that, let's talk about what AI Overview is. AI Overview is a new search feature that basically Google offers. And the reason that it exists is because ever since language models came out, what they're finding is less and less people are Googling things. They're actually using their language models like ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity to search for basic stuff like when did the American Revolution happen, right? And the problem with that is when you search for that on a language model, it's actually quite wasteful, because the way a language model works, it calculates every single answer that it pulls up. It's been trained on trillions of tokens. And when you basically ask that question, it checks words associations across thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of different words to basically using probabilities to predict the answer. And it literally calculates using energy the answer. Now, obviously, this has been really, really bad for traditional Google search. And so basically what Google did in order to combat this, because it's stopping people from going to their main Google website, searching stuff, visiting actual links where they serve up ads. So obviously it makes sense for them to basically put this AI overview. You might have seen it. If you go to the Google homepage, they have something there. They'll say like Google AI mode. So anyways, whenever you search something through this new Google AI search, it will return the result. And the answers are very, very good. It'll be just like ChatGPT. It'll explain itself in depth and you will get a quick answer. But here's the catch. Because they're using a language model, a lot of regular consumers think that they're interacting with their traditional search when they go through the homepage. But the reality is it's completely different. So before I get into that, I'm going to explain how the traditional search works really quickly. So a traditional search, the way it works is this. When you search Google, like for banana, it doesn't matter what you search for, it's looking for keywords and then it's ranking millions, if not billions of websites that Google has crawled and created an association for. And so it will return the top 10 results for banana. And what you would normally do is click one of those pages and you would go read whatever's on that page. Now, here's the catch. Back in the day, when you go to that page, whoever wrote the information on that page is essentially responsible for what's on that page, not Google. And when they ever had to face legal scrutiny, Google would namely say, hey, all we are is a link aggregator. We just index and rate web pages based on their content. And so when people search on our Google site, we return the page. It's your job to vet the source. It's your job to click the link and vet the source. Well, here's the difference. In Germany, when they use this new Google AI search, Germany understands that they're no longer using traditional methods to serve up the results. So what's actually happening in Germany, that these two basically German publishers are finding out that when people were searching their content on Google AI Overview, it was associating them with this scam that was happening in Germany. They were basically associating their business with a scam. And so they sued Google. They brought it to the court and made the argument that Google is actually producing these results. And Google tried to use its own or its old defense, which is, hey, we just aggregate the information and those results, we provide source links. So here's where the problem comes in. Like I said before, the way a language model works is it trained on billions of parameters. That means that Google probably ingested the majority of the links on the internet. And then they created a language model on top of it. So it found all the patterns and associations, and that went into their Google model. So when you search using their Google AI, it's actually not even reading those links anymore. It already trained on all those links, and it's just calculating your answer. It's generating your answer. When did the American Revolution start? It will look at everything it's ever read, thousands, if not millions of data points. And now it has a map of all the associations with all the words you ask, and it calculates the answer for you. So they're arguing that Google did the majority of the transformative work. If you look at the traditional method, right, Google would serve up links. You would go click on that link and you would read that web page. Well, whoever created that web page did the majority of the transformational work. He's the one that wrote the web page. He's the one published the article. He's the one that created the blog. His ideals in the blog. However, with Google AI search, Google's have read the entire internet. And so you can't differentiate where that source came from that they generated. So Google or the publisher can't attribute any damage to anybody if the Google's just able to read billions and trillions of data points and then it generates the answer. So who's doing the new transformation? Well, if you think about it, Google's doing the new transformation, because if you read a billion data points and then your algorithm is what calculates the answer, well, your algorithm, it needs to be responsible for what you write. And that's what the German courts found them guilty of. They're saying, hey, we can't attribute the false information to anybody else other than you, because your system is so transformative in creating the answer that you got to be held accountable how your system transformed. And Google argued in this case that, oh, we still provide source links, right? But they did research and found that people who use language models, only like 1% to 2% of people even look at the source links when they generate language models. Essentially, the behavior is people are just trusting the language model to have read way more information than they could ever read, and just trusting that they're getting an amalgamation of the good answers. So why is this important? See, that's the kids. This is important because in the future, this is going to become a significant issue, because right now, no U.S. company or ruling has really ruled on this because it has such wide-reaching implications. Can you imagine, given how much language models already hallucinate, if you can be held accountable, whether you're Gemini or Anthropic, for hallucinations, or if it makes a false statement about somebody or somebody's business or somebody's personal life, you're able to go to Google and sue them? Can you imagine the amount of lawsuits that Google would get or ChatGPT would get? It would literally slow down the AI revolution. Well, basically this happened in Germany. They let them know, hey, if your language model is producing damaging content that's defaming people, you could potentially be held liable. Now, obviously, this is not over. They appealed the case, but this has wide-reaching implications. And this is going to become a paramount issue in the future, as you know, because think about it. There's multiple things going on here that are very, very important, especially if you think about it. If the language models and these companies are able to read the entire internet and synthesize billions, if not trillions of people's information, people who have copyrights, people who spent their life work producing it, every video that ever been done on YouTube, every podcast, they're able to ingest all of your work, all of your original thinking, and then use an algorithm called a language model and able to print up any answer they want. So if they were able to be held AI accountable for this will stop language models in their track, because there's no way that you're going to be able to find out every single person that you learned from. There's no way you're going to be able to pay off every single person that you copyright infringed on. So the reality is, no matter how much, and this is my personal opinion here, no matter how much they fight this case, the incentive structure for governments and major players to actually enforce these laws is very, very low at scale. Maybe a few judgments will win, but structurally, if you look at the incentive structure, it's not going to happen. Let me explain why I say this. Think about this. Right now, there's a new world order emerging, right? The world is transforming. It's on the brink of World War III. Now, that World War III may not necessarily be a hot war, but it will be an economic, isolationist, technological transformation war. And so right now, China, Russia, Iran are challenging our hegemony. And we're in $44 trillion of debt. Right now, you have BRICS forming. You have, for the first time in history in 2025, you have essentially more central banks holding gold in their treasury than they hold US dollars. Why is this important? That means that the dollar standard that we've benefited for the last 50 to 60 years after World War II is on the brink of transforming. In order for us to continue to be the most dominant superpower, both militarily and economically, we need a new industrial revolution. And we're betting that AI is going to save us. Now, why is this related to this little court case? This is related to this court case is because Germany is not America. And the reason they were able to hold that judgment on that American company like Google is because if you look at the behavior of the Trump administration, if you look at the fact that we went into Venezuela, if you look at the fact that we're ready to go into Cuba, we attacked Iran, we're leaving our European partners on notice, we're telling Canada that we're going to absorb you. If you look at all this behavior, we're acting frantically because we're basically losing power. And Europe is starting to have an adversarial relationship with us too. They're basically telling us, hey, you're no longer the reliable partner you used to be. And Trump want to play hardball. Well, Google, we're going to start checking what you're doing with this AI thing. We're going to start spinning up protections with you against your company because in the future, we're not sure that you're going to be our ally. Now, will this happen in the United States? I would say in the short run, 1 to 5 years, this is probably not going to happen because the incentive structure for America, for the government, for the corporations to go full steam ahead with AI is just too high. I just explained to you the entire field, right? I just explained to you that there's a greater game being played. And that greater game is we're in $44 trillion of debt. And nothing in this world is going to get us out of that except AI. We need massive industrial revolution. This is the 4th industrial revolution, and we're betting it all on AI. Can you imagine that how much it would slow down this process of AI and learning and building these things out if they actually start holding these companies accountable for what they hallucinate or what they say? Can you imagine the amount of lawsuits? Do you imagine the amount of safety precautions and investment that companies would have to go into to basically be accountable for what those language models produce, what they generate? It would be a stagnating event. And you really think the corporation and a government who's desperate, who's attacking countries, who are losing their global place in the world is going to stop in the short run? I'm talking about the short run, 1 to 5 years, 1 to 10 years, the pace of AI when they've already invested billions and trillions into it? No way. So this story, to me, it's important because it has a structural message that, hey, look at what these companies, these other countries are doing and how they feel about us. How they feel about AI. They're starting to realize in the new world, the old paradigm is over. They're going to have to start thinking about AI. They're going to have to start thinking about if they're going to let Google ingest all their data on their borders. And this is just a small first step. You're seeing a adversarial Europe emerge where Europe might, for the first time in the last 50 years, might have to start creating their own protectionist strategy globally. And so this issue is very important. But that's the thing I would take from this court case. And this is the thing that I would think that you would need to remember. See you guys next time.